When a dog suddenly ran into a busy hospital, the staff was stunned and tried to chase it away, but one of the nurses got close enough to see what it was carrying in its mouth, and what she discovered made her cry. At around 6 in the morning, the dog Jack began his daily breakfast run. He preferred to start early because people weren't up and about yet, which meant he could get his food without interference. As usual, he wandered slowly toward the trash bins behind a row of restaurants on Main Street in Brunswick in the United States. He didn't hate humans, but he didn't trust them much either. In 9 years of living on the streets, he had witnessed the cruelty and indifference they were capable of, and he was often subjected to their careless behavior. But there was one thing he would always be grateful to humans for, and that was their habit of throwing away leftover food. At the end of each day, Jack would slowly move toward one of the bins when he smelled a human scent he didn't like. But when he pressed his nose to the bundle to get more information, he realized that this scent was different from any human scent he had ever picked up before. His instincts told him that what was inside the wrapper was something small, weak, and helpless, and even if it was human, it would die if he didn't do something. After looking at the blanket for a few minutes, Jack gently moved it so he could grab it with his mouth, then lifted it up. Now he was a stray dog on a mission. Whatever was inside the blanket moved a little, then became completely still in his canine mind. It was time for Jack to make his next decision. What should he do now? He needed help, but it was too early for the restaurants to open, which meant there wouldn't be any humans around yet. And although he preferred to remain indifferent, he knew that human help was what he needed. The small figure in the blanket moved again, and Jack realized the importance of his mission. There was a strange building a few blocks away, where he sometimes wandered to get food, and he knew from experience that there were always people there, coming and going at all hours of the day. After 5 minutes, when he turned the last corner, he saw that he was right. There were a lot of people there, some wandering around the parking lot, and others hurrying through the glass doors. A large truck approached from his left, with red lights flashing and making a terrible noise. Jack immediately headed toward the glass doors. Inside Brunswick Hospital, the shifts were about to change. A patient was being transferred from the ambulance to one of the emergency rooms, and the nurse behind the counter was using the intercom system to call for the emergency doctor on duty. That's when she noticed the dog, immediately raising her hackles. There was definitely a hygiene issue, but a dog in the emergency department would undoubtedly be a distraction. And this wasn't the kind of environment where distractions were helpful, not under her supervision. So she stepped out from behind the counter and immediately started trying to get the dog out. Jack saw that the woman was trying to kick him out. She didn't even look at the bundle in his mouth. His instinct was to drop the bundle and its contents on the floor and leave, but for some reason, he decided to find another human. He skillfully avoided the angry woman and rushed into a small kitchen where 3 ladies were having coffee. At first, they didn't notice him, but when they did, 2 of them immediately started trying to kick him out. Just like the woman behind the counter had tried, the small movement in his mouth made him hope that the 3rd woman would notice what he was carrying. She looked at him questioningly, then stood up from her chair and walked toward him, speaking in a soft voice. Jack loved her immediately. She wasn't like the others, so he allowed her to come closer when he was sure he had her full attention. He gently placed the bundle on the ground and took a step back. Angelina Potter had been working at Brunswick Hospital for nearly 10 years, and this was the first time she had seen anything like this. She knew dogs and how they communicate with humans. This dog's behavior had a lot to do with the bundle in its mouth, and when it dropped it on the ground and stepped back without leaving it completely, she knew it was important. From the condition of the dog's coat, she could tell it was a stray. Angelina didn't want to scare the animal, but she also knew she had to get to the small bundle on the ground as quickly as possible. She took another step forward, keeping her voice low and steady while she spoke to the dog. It took another step back, and she had a feeling that it was giving her access to the wrapped blanket, and that it wouldn't relax until she looked inside it. When she knelt down and gently opened the bundle, her eyes filled with tears. This was the last thing she expected, and yet she knew what it was before she removed the last layer of the blanket. It was a small baby, no more than a few days old, barely breathing, and its skin was blue from the cold. Angelina moved immediately. She shouted to the nurse behind the counter to call the doctor, adding that there was an infant in critical condition. She warmed her hands by rubbing them together, then started tapping on the baby's chest and the soles of his feet to see if she could get a reaction. Nothing. The infant had a pulse, and that gave her hope. When the doctor arrived, she stepped back. The doctor checked the baby's pulse, listened for signs of breathing, and then the baby was taken away on a stretcher. Angelina exhaled slowly and turned her attention back to the dog. She praised him for his actions and reached out her hand, hoping he would let her touch him. This was unusual for Jack. This woman was trying to touch him. Normally, he would never allow that. But he liked her. He knew in his heart that she was kind. However, he didn't know that what would happen next would change his life completely. As Angelina brought her hand closer, the dog relaxed. She gently placed her hand on his head and began to rub behind his ears. She wanted to reward this wonderful dog for saving the life of a newborn, but she knew that to do so, she had to earn his trust first. Jack had already decided that this human would be his friend. She was rubbing his ears in the spot he liked, and when she turned to grab a jacket from the coat rack, he stayed at her feet. Angelina smiled when the dog sat and watched her put on her jacket. Then, with another rub of his ears, she turned and headed toward the door. "Are you coming?" she asked as she patted the side of her leg. Jack understood and followed her out the door. After 3 months, a lot had changed for the stray dog, the child he saved, and the nurse herself. First, Angelina took Jack to her home, and he lived with her permanently. This was his first permanent home, and he adapted to it beautifully. But the good news didn't stop there. Jack couldn't believe it when his new human came home one evening. And with her was a little bundle in her arms. He recognized the scent immediately and jumped with joy. The little baby in her arms was the same one who had been wrapped in an old blanket. In the alley behind the Italian restaurant, Angelina sat with the baby in her arms and the dog at her feet. 3 months ago, her life was a lonely place. And now, because of the brave and wise actions of this wonderful stray dog, she had a family that would love her forever. What a beautiful ending. What would you have done if you were in Angelina's place? Would you have tried to chase the dog away from the hospital?